Well, good evening and good morning. Here in my end of the world, it's evening, and there your end of the world, Denise, it's morning. I'm here with Denise Ritchie from Australia, head
Hi,
of the
Sam.
hello, head of the Thras Institute, and a lot of other things that she's going to tell us about right now. So let's just begin by you telling us a little bit about yourself and your background.
Hi, Sam. It's lovely to be talking to you today. And I feel very comfy in the fact that I see my favorite author at the back, where I love reading with Dr. Seuss, and I've always loved Dr. Seuss. So thank you for having that in the background. It's great to be talking to your audience here across the globe and in America, because I know there's a lot of people who said that they're going to be watching this interview today. And I hope that I can give you some understanding of my points of view and how I feel about phonics and the teaching of reading. My background is in teaching. I shouldn't say is in teaching. I am a teacher. I'm a teacher trainer. I've taught in many places across the globe. I've taught in the UK. I've taught in Asia. I deliver professional development all the time. I'm now very honoured that I am the Honorary Chair of Literacy at Murdoch University in West Australia, and I'm loving working with our student teachers, and I hope a lot of them get to see this interview. I think one of the things that I'd like to start with, Sam, is that I think it's always important whenever we're talking about teaching is to understand the role of a teacher. And for me, I always say whenever I'm starting to work with teachers is that we have such an important role. We have a profession and we have a craft. Our profession is knowledge, and it's about delivering knowledge to our learners. Our craft is the skills and strategies that we use to deliver that knowledge. Now, if we're going to be delivering the knowledge of how to read to our children and take them on this exciting journey of learning to read and write, which is going to open up an amazing world for them, we have to have the knowledge and the understanding of how to teach that to our learners. One of the things that people talk about in here is that when we're talking about our profession and reading, a very important element of teaching children to read is phonics. And I know that that's what we're going to be talking about today. But one of the things that I find, which is very difficult, is coming back is to our profession, is the teacher's knowledge and understanding of what really is phonics. Many of us have a very superficial understanding of phonics. Many of understand very simply the alphabet of A makes that, B makes B, C makes K, and so forth that we've been taught. But to get into any more of the complexities that there are in the wonderful world of phonics, a lot of teachers go, oh, I was never taught that, I was never taught this, and so forth. So unfortunately, when we look at the teaching of phonics, phonics has always been one of those processes that is either in, excuse me, or it's out. And when it comes in, everybody knows that phonics is important. It's an essential element of teaching children to read. Sadly, though, the way that we teach phonics from the very beginning is actually incorrect. If we're not teaching phonics as what it should be, is 26 letters to represent 44 sounds. So what we have, having teachers who are able to explain the English written code is really important, because English is not a simple code. It never has been and never will be. It has never been made up of 26 letters and 26 sounds. You know, how many of us have gone to read with our children the word cat, and then they're looking at a word like city, and they look at it and go, well, that word says cat, but how am I going to explain city now? And what do? I go, well, that's a tricky old word. We'll have to leave that one until later on. So, but to have the knowledge and understanding of how to teach both of those at exactly the same time, that is what produces, or that is what allows us to become effective teachers of reading and writing. And that's what I'm going to be talking about today.
Okay, I'm going to break in here, and we had a pre-discussion, and you were talking about the importance of oral language and how all that fits in. So I'll just remind you of that. And having been a teacher of teachers myself, I'm saving your opening remarks to show to teachers over here, because they were just right on target. But can you, as you move along, be sure to talk to us about oral language, please. Thank you.
Yeah, oral language and vocabulary are essential elements in teaching early reading and writing. Connecting your spoken words to written words is actually the first task of literacy teaching. That's what we have to do with children. We share a book. So if I pick up a reading book with my children, what do I have to do? I'm showing them that these little funny squiggles that we have here on a page, these funny little squiggles, they're going to represent the sounds, and they're going to be telling us what we have to read. You know, it's very interesting, you know, over the years that and the journey that you've taken, you know, I've worked with children who have actually not understood that the actual writing, the black bits on the page, the writing is actually what you read, because they actually haven't been taught that. So it's really important for us to bring in and say, well, what's the whole idea of us reading a book? It's not just let's share a book. It's we're teaching you that this book is going to tell us a story. But how do we tell that story? We tell that story by looking at those words on the bottom. But as we discussed earlier, Sam, is a really important part of being able to teach phonics or any type of reading is for children to actually understand the meaning of words. So oral language and vocabulary are really essential elements of teaching children early reading skills. So if I'm going to pick up a reading book with my learners and it's going to be about a day at the beach, I want to know that my children actually know what a beach is. Because I've been in schools and you're talking about a beach, or a teacher's talking about a beach. Some children have never been to the beach. They've never seen a beach. They actually don't understand the concept of what a beach is. So why I'm going to teach you that EA makes E in beach and you've got no idea what a beach is, then actually that learning is not as effective, or not even effective as it should be. So that oral language and vocabulary are really important elements of teaching children to read. We know here in Australia through our NAPLAN results that we can pinpoint that one of the biggest failures that we actually have in reading comes down to children's knowledge of words. And we know that vocabulary is an important element now that we are focusing on. And in NAPLAN a few years ago, we had a question which stated, if I had a couple of bananas, how many would I have? And we had children saying 3, 5, 6, whatever. And as I say, if it was my children, I'd understand that, because I'm always saying to my kids, I'll be a couple of minutes, and I'm 5, 10 minutes later down the track. But to not understand that the word couple means two, that actually allowed hundreds of thousands of children to actually fail a question. So that we as teachers have to be very, very aware of, first of all, what are we doing? What is this whole element of teaching children to read and write? Reading and writing is about comprehension, understanding what you're going to read. Building vocabulary is a very important part of comprehension, and it starts from the very, very early years. Oral language is really important for me to be able to orally articulate an object. So if I pick up this object here, and I've just had these sitting next to me, but if I pick up this and I say, this is a cow. Now, it's no use me just saying a cow. I've got to be able to discriminate the difference between a cow and a tiger. So what makes a cow a cow? What makes a tiger a tiger? So the oral language that goes behind that is really, really important. What does a cow look like? What type of sound does a cow make? All the things, all the elements that go together to show me about a cow. You know, I might be talking to my children about a car and a bus. And I had these because I was actually doing a preschool Zoom yesterday. So that's why they're all sitting here on my desk. So, you know, if I'm teaching my children about a car and a bus, I have to discriminate the difference between what is a car and what is a bus. And what makes up a car. You know, why is it called a car? What are the parts of a car, and so forth. So all that language learning is really, really important and essential in those early years. And from that language learning, that opens up to reading and to writing. And as we build the knowledge of words, that then helps us with reading for comprehension, and to write, it allows children to express themselves. And that's what we write for, to express ourselves.
Okay, and also in the little pre-discussion we had, I talked to you about orthographic information and how all that fits in. And that's something that on this side of the pond, well, no, can't really put it that way. That's something that over here, I don't think teachers had as strong a grasp of. In the past few years, it's been coming more to the forefront. But could you just give us well, could you just tell her what you told me about Arthur? I
Yeah.
mean, you just gave me a wonderful lesson in that before the interview started. So I'd like for you to share that with my readers.
So when we're talking about orthography, orthography really is another, is another term. It fits in very, very importantly with what we teach about phonics, because orthography is the spelling system of any language. And every language has a certain spelling system that we use. So orthography is the patterns that we have in the words. So our patterns we call our phonic patterns, and which phonic patterns follow which other phonic patterns and so forth. Now, people think that English is not a patterned language. It's actually a really patterned language, and it's got a really great orthography. The problem is that many people don't understand that orthography. And what happens in early years teaching is when that orthography is taught incorrectly from the start, it actually starts to cause confusion with the child, with the learner, who actually doesn't overthrow it or ignore it. So if I come here and I say, if we teach children that the letter A, and I'm going to write on here, I hope this is fine for your listeners now. If I teach you that the letter A makes the sound at, like in apple, how do I as a teacher then teach you the word was? Now, what we've done over the years, we put it in a basket and we call it a tricky old word or a sight word. And what we do here in Australia, we've got a great way of teaching those. We put them on a piece of paper, a coloured piece of paper, and we send them home to the parents. We say, if you can't teach your kids the sight words, nor can we, but that's your problem if you can't teach your children the sight words. Now, when we're actually teaching explicit phonics and explicit understanding, and we teach phonics correctly, first of all, letters do not have a sound. That is not an A. What we have is we have 44 sounds. One of those 44 sounds is A. The best way to write A in English is to use the letter A. Now, but if I was going to be talking about I had a plait in my hair, I might actually write it as AI, but that's not the most common way to write the sound A. It's the letter A is the most common way to write the sound A. So we have to make a paradigm shift about the way we think about what is phonics and what is orthography. And that is, we have these 26 symbols, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, that each have a name, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and we use them functionally in different ways to represent different sounds. So in was, we use the letter A to represent the sound O. So when we do words like was and want and what and so forth and swan, etc., we use the letter A to make the sound O. This letter S, and Americans have done this really well, this letter S, most commonly in English, does not represent S, like in Sam and Sammy Snake. Sorry, Sam. You're going to see it in many, many words, and especially when you see it in plurals and so forth, where it's actually going to make the sound Z. So we say was Z, Z. We don't say it's an ass. We say as, we say was, we say is, and so forth. And the letter S is a very, very common way to write the sound Z in English. So when you're doing plurals, you do word like bird and birds and so forth, and the letter S is making Z. Now, this is coming back to my orthography, so don't think I've sort of run away from there, Sam. But what happens here, we can see when I'm doing plurals, if the sound at the end of a word is what we call a voiced consonant phoneme, so I say bird or birds, or it's a vowel, which is voiced like play, plays, the letter S is going to represent the sound Z, which is its voiced sound. If it's at the end of a word like, a word like duck, and is an unvoiced phoneme, then this letter S is going to make it sound S, ducks. So you don't say ducks, you say ducks, but you say birds. So what actually happens is a lot of our orthography actually comes down to the sounds that words follow. Now, to understand orthography really well, and I think this is one of the best that I have seen, is from George Bernard Shaw, who wrote and had that fantastic, many of your viewers may have seen it before, but we see this word, and some of you have seen this word written, and someone will say, can you tell me what that word says? Now, a lot of us would read that word as gotti or goatee. So if you read that as gotti or goatee, I'm actually going to say to you, you are the best readers here. Because what have you done? You have actually understood English orthography. Now, what happens here is that George Bernard Shaw said we could call this fish because the letter F can make the sound, sorry, the sound, the GH can make the sound f, like in cough and rough and tough. The letter O can make the sound it, like in women, and TI makes the sound sh, like in station, potion, lotion, invitation, and so forth. So that word could be fish. But why can't it be fish? Because this is what is orthography. We don't have GH at the beginning of an English word making f. It will only make it if it's at the end. So when we do rough and cough and tough and so forth, when it's at the end of a word, it will make the sound f. Does that make sense? If we see a letter I at the end of an English word, like words like ski and taxi and so forth, we'll tend to say E. And that's why we'll read that as goatee, because we'll put together the orthography that our brain has worked through, putting together those patterns. Now, that's why it's so important for us to teach phonics correctly from the start, because we have to have a sustainable platform of understanding about those phonic patterns. Now, if you're going to teach me that the letter A is at, that is going to be unsustainable. It means that I'm not going to be able to read. If I'm going to a ball game, I'm not going to read the word ball, because you don't go to a ball game. You go to a ball game. So when you do words like all and ball and tall and fall and also and always and so forth, you're going to see that the letter A is going to make the sound or. So that teaching me that A is at is not going to help me with was, it's not going to help me with ball. You might say words like last and fast, you might say last and fast, but actually the letter A here is making the sound R, like last and fast and classed and past and so forth, where the letter A makes the sound R. So to start teaching this code, the foundation of a code of being one letter makes one sound, you are going to get a certain group of children who are actually always going to fail. And why? We ask ourselves, we look at a lot of these children who we say have difficulties, or we use the term dyslexia or are dyslexic. Now, I've seen many, many children, as I'm sure that many of your listeners have, that will write was, W-O-Z. Now, that child who writes was, W-O-Z, is actually the best learner in my class if you are doing SSP letter sounds. Why? Because they're doing what the teacher wants them to do. You teach me that the W is work, work, work. You teach me that the O is old orange octopus, o, o, o. You teach me that the Z is Z, letter Z is zebra, Zing, z, z, z. So why would you ever read that word as was or write it as W-A-S? Because you're going against everything that your teacher is telling me. But then the teacher comes along and gives me a big cross. But they give this person a big tick. So I'm sitting there going, I'm doing everything that the teacher wants me to do, and they're giving me a cross. My next door neighbour is doing everything that the teacher hasn't told me to do, and they get a big tick. So they actually start to lose confidence in their ability with the phonics that they are learning. And this is why it's so important that when we start with remediation with these children, is we actually start from the point of need. So when I'm remediating these children, I'm getting them to understand orthography. I can say to the child, and this is how I can use a Thras chart, which I use our Thras chart. I can say, look what you've done right. Yes, the letter W can make the sound work, and that's the right spelling choice, right sound. Here, you can hear the right sound. So when I'm marking children's work, if they have the right sound, but wrong spelling choice, I tick from the bottom and say, good work, you're hearing the right sound, you're nearly right, but we've got the letter A that makes the ox sound. Good work, you've chosen the z because you can hear z in was, but who's taught you that the letter S can make z? So when you write was, you've got all the sounds right, you're nearly there. Now we just have to change your understanding of those spelling choices. So we have to remediate with these children at the point of need. So at the end of last year, if I can just finish this one off, Sam, at the end of last year, I was in a place called Alice Springs in WA. And sadly, I was working with these year 9 boys who were classed as having these are our worst in year 9 boys in reading and writing. And I walked into the classroom with our Thras yellow chart, phonics, and these guys going, like, oh, I don't want to do this anymore. And obviously I can't use some of the floral language which they use to me, and which is starting with fs and kits and all the rest of it around there. But anyway, we got into it, and it was Wednesday. And I said to these boys, who can write the word Wednesday? They went, no. I said, come on, boys, you're all year nines. You've been at school for over 250 Wednesdays. So you must be able to spell Wednesday. So one of the boys was gorgeous. He got up and he wrote a big W-E-D like that. And I said, well, good work. You know something about Wednesday. But he said, I don't know how to spell it. I said, okay. And then the next one got up and wrote W, and sorry to do this to you all if it's going all over here, but W-E-N-S-D-A-Y. And I said, that is fantastic. You've got every sound right in Wednesday. And I said, you've nearly got that whole word right. Right sound, right spelling choice, right sound, right spelling choice. You can hear N in Wednesday. You hear the Z, the D, the A. So if you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 pieces of information, you've got 5 out of 6 on that word. What you haven't taught is that no teacher has ever taught you that D and E can make the sound N. And that's how we write the N sound in Wednesday. That's our phonic pattern. That's what we do. And we can then look at the etymology, where it comes from, the morphemes, and how that's derived. But we just needed to do that one little piece of information to change those boys.
Could I interrupt you for just a moment and ask you, because my readers, many of my readers are not familiar with the Thras chart, and it's to me, it's magic plus. Could you show me how a teacher might quickly show me a Thras chart and show me how a teacher might use that to help with the situation you're talking about right there, because I know they really could.
Okay, Sam. Well, actually, I didn't actually have one with me, but I will. What I will do, if you
Oh
just
dear.
I know that's it. I'm going like, why did I not have the Thras chart here with me? So what I would do is, and if I just use this, because we got numerous. This is one that I use with older students and I use with adults. So this has actually also got IPA. I hope that you can all see it well enough in here. But what we would do, I would say to these boys up here, here's the N box up here in Wednesday. And we put DNE in here because they can see that we can have N like in net, which is N, double N making a digraph like in dinner, KN like in knee, and we're going to put DN making the N sound, DNE making the N sound here like in Wednesday, and we add it to our chart. We also have what we call a master spelling chart that has got every spelling choice in English under its sound boxes. So we work on this chart. So the Thras chart is purely a roadmap for me as a teacher. And that's one of the things that is really important with Thras. It's a roadmap for me as a teacher so that I can map out and show my children what they can hear and now what they have to see to write. I can explain the spelling of a word to them and go, yes, that's why we write this word this way. So if I'm going to do the word was with you, I'm going to say, come down here to our op box. And down here we've got frog and swan, which is our simple chart for our little ones. And we can go, yes, and we'll see a little star at the end, meaning for the other spelling choices. But we can say when we do what and was, here we are, it's the op like in swan. And then we can link by analogy other words like what and was and want and so forth with all the other words that have got the letter A that make the sound op. So we're continually linking these patterns. We're building that orthography. And then what children start to understand is that if I want to write the sound off after the sound w, a good way to write it will be an A. So when I do words like want and what and watch and so forth, I'm going to hear the sound w before that. And so the letter A will be a good way. That's our orthography that we're linking. So when I do a word like squash, because the letter U in squash makes the w sound, you go sk, w. How am I going to write the op sound? A good way to write it is the letter A. So I'm going to go sk, w, o, sh. So that is what you call orthography, how you link it in those patterns together.
Okay, since I would personally consider having a Thras chart a lifeline beyond lifelines, and I talked to you before this, and I know I'm not trying to be, well, I know it's a sales kind of thing, but that's all right because I'm first thing I'm going to do after this interview is get online and go to where you said we could get some of this information. So for those of us in the United States, where would we go and how would we go about getting the thresh chart information?
If you go to look up on the lovely World Wide Web, go to Thras UK. You will see there, you can see America, and you'll see underneath there America and all the other places in America where that you can actually get those thrust charts. And if you email there, I'm sure you will be able to get those thrust charts. If any of your listeners are in the Cayman Islands and so forth, I know that there's lots of thrust charts and there's lots of interesting photos of working down on the Cayman Islands and so forth of using Thras2 as English as a second language program. If you're in Canada and any other parts of the world from there, you can then come into the Thras Institute in Australia and we'll talk to you about the Thras chart, and you're able to get the Thras chart from where we are. So, but please, go to www.thrasuk and you will be able to see all the charts and things that you can use there. And there's some great English charts there. So you can see your Thras English spelling charts.
Okay. And my previous interview to this was with one of your star pupils, Norel, who, just amazing. Everyone was enthralled with her depth of knowledge. And I'll simply point out that depth of knowledge came because of the Thras Institute. And there's a whole lot more than we could possibly cover in a half an hour interview. But I'm hoping what I'm doing here is piquing my readers' interest and having them visit your website to find out a whole lot more about it. It is a research-based approch, and you're doing amazing work. I want to get into some of the theoretical stuff for a minute now. I sense that when we both first talked, we realized we were both centrist, and I realized that, and we were believing to look at all the research and views about research. So just talk to me for a moment as a centrist. Why take that position? Why not go to one side or the other? What is your basic view of the reading wars? And why do you say, and I think that I think I can clearly put you in that centrist point of view. Why should readers be there?
Because as you said with the reading wars, being in teaching for 40 years, very much I've been through the reading wars, as you can imagine. Being in a university lecture, I've also been in the reading wars. I've been into classrooms, I've been into staff rooms, where those reading wars have actually caused a war between teachers on staff, between the difference between phonics and whole language. For me, it's never been don't do phonics. Phonics it's an essential, it's a non-negotiable element. Our whole language is built on phonics and orthography. It's like saying, let's teach maths without teaching numbers. You just don't do that. It's phonics, it's phonics is so important. But what is really important, Sam, and this is why we keep having these swings, if phonics is taught incorrectly, that means if it has the incorrect foundation of letter sounds, which is happening now with SSP, and people go, phonics is going to work. What will actually happen now is we're still going to get that same group of children who don't overthrow that. They get to words like do and to, and they go to o, de o, and they can't understand that the letter O can make the sound oo, because that comes in the complex code. So who's to tell me which code is simple and which code is complex? A child is going to will probably use the word so and no and do and to before they're going to use the word frog and log, I'm sure. So it's really important for teachers, and this is why it's about building teacher knowledge and understanding, is that we need to have good knowledge of what phonics is so that we can build it into our everyday teaching. So that as I'm teaching a child, if we're doing Mrs. Wishy-Washy, which is one of the books that we do here in Australia, and we do Mrs. Wishy-Washy at the farm, we can talk to our children, we can say, in wishy and washy, we can hear the sound shh. Now, kids are going to go to the shop from the time that they are born, and they're going to see the word shop. Why can't we teach them that SH makes sh, like in shop, and wishy-washy from the start? They're going to do words like happy and so forth. Why do we have to go through teaching them Y makes y, like in yet, yes and yellow and yacht, when we're going to read that letter Y making the sound E in so many words? A word that children want to use all the time is the word my. It's all about me. When little kids start, my, me, my, me. And so why can't we teach them that that word says my? The sounds we can hear are I. Look, that letter Y, when it jumps out of the alphabet and into my, is making the sound I. Isn't that great? So when we do my, we spell it as I with M-Y. Now, teachers who've got good knowledge of phonics, and this is taking people like Narelle Firminger, from when she first started off with doing THRAS, it was, and I said to her, well, if you're going to start doing these journeys, you have to question all the time. Good teachers are always questioning what they're doing in their classroom. Don't take verbatim what I say. Think about it. Think about the process. Look at your children's work. Look what they do. They are going to give you the understanding that you are, or they're going to show you what they are understanding that you are teaching them. If they write was as W-O-Z, then you're not actually teaching them about the letter A can make the sound O. If they're writing a word like day, D capital A, which we get children doing, is because they're confusing lowercase and capital letters and so forth. So the most important thing about building teacher capacity, and this is where I've worked for many years, and my job now working at Murdoch University, is about building teacher capacity. The more knowledge, the more understanding we have, the easier it is for us then to take our children on that journey. We shouldn't just be doing this. These are just some of the work samples of just some of our children that we have. And these are all 4 and 5 year olds, and we can start to see some of the great writing that they can do. And these are even term 2 tasks. So these are great writing they can do, because when they have the THRAS chart with them and when they're actually working on the 44 phonemes, they can go, oh, I want to write, and this child here, I love this child here, has, I just read it here, it's written the word delicious. So they've tried a really hard word and they've gone, and they've written the SH. That's fantastic work from those kids. They're working from their phonemic awareness and they're starting to pick up those graphemes. Then I'm able to show them where they've gone wrong. When you do words like delicious and special and so forth, that CI makes that sh sound. So that's what good teaching practice is all about, that you've got someone with the knowledge who's then able to take you on that journey and be able to give a really good understanding of what we have to learn. So I'm sorry about me picking these up on the way through, but I was trying to pick up a green top in here. But when we're working with, and if you all just excuse me for a minute, I just find this green top.
Sure.
But when I'm working with little ones, we don't just say we're only doing green today and we only teach green, 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 and we're only going to teach you that's green. We're quite happy to say that is orange, that is red, that is green. Who can show me which one's orange? Who can show me which one's green? Who can show me which one's red? And so forth. And we're always differentiating. We start with differentiation right from the very beginning. Now, if you've got little Phoebe who comes into your classroom, little Phoebe does not want to have to sit in a prep grade being taught P makes pa, 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 H makes ha, ha, ha. And then she goes, well, I must be a per or Philip has to be a per and so forth, because the P and the H are making the p and the h. Children now, and you think about our environment, they're seeing mobile phones and the word photo everywhere. Why can't I say to my little ones on day 1, Philip and Phoebe, you've got the sound f in your name. And I'm looking at my chart here. You've got the sound f in your name. And Philip and Phoebe, you're up here and you're looking after the dolphin. And you've got 2 letters that make your f sound in your name. And they are PH. So they understand it. Charlotte, we can hear shh. Here we are in that sh box. Charlotte, you're like in the chef. But Charlie, and I had this at the beginning of last year, Charlie, you're like in shark. So before COVID, and because I can't move out of my state at the moment, I haven't been for a year, to be in the last school that I was in, introducing this at the beginning of last year. In my classroom, I had an Archie. Archie needed to know that he had the sound R. He hasn't got an a in his name. He can hear R at the beginning of Archie. Surely we can say to Archie, Archie, here you are. This is your box down here, Archie. And you've got the AR that makes the R sound, like in car and Archie. And we're going to start to match that from the very beginning. And that is about for teachers, and a very important thing to me when I'm taking teachers through the journey of THRAS. It's about saying a really important part is thinking about the way that you believe children learn. Do they actually learn step by step by step by step? Or do children have the ability to be able to put this information together and join things together? And I know that Narelle told a story about the cephalopod last week, and I'm going to just go on that because it was very funny, because this story happened also with because my grandson's very much into all these cephalopods and so forth. But he knows what is a nautilus. He knows that a cephalopod is a nautilus. He knows that it can be a squid. He knows that it can be an octopus. He knows it can be a cuttlefish. They're all nautilus. They're all cephalopods, but they're all different. But he looks at what's common about them, what can come together and what's common. And that's really important, that we think about how children actually do learn. You know, we don't teach them how to dress by saying we're only going to put on one sleeve, only one sleeve. We let them, you know, if they've got to put on both sleeves over their head, they get caught up, they do all these other things. They have to go through that journey. And the way that we explicitly help them through that journey is really important. And that's what we're doing here. Is all that we are doing here with the THRAS chart is the explicit teaching roadmap, so that as a teacher, instead of me just being abstract in talking about phonics and how they fit together, I can show Archie that he's got R like in car, ch like in chair, and the E like over here in the pony box. So I can actually show Archie exactly how his name comes together. And that's the whole concept, that I should have something as a teacher that I understand phonics, I understand orthography, and I can help every child with every word understand how it fits together.
Okay, I'll get on my little soapbox for just a moment. And my soapbox is that I think we ought to be empowering teachers, and that I think we are making a huge mistake if we don't make teachers the center of things. If that's the way to go. And I think what you have just done is given us one vision of how one can empower teachers. And I'm rather sure that we've piqued the interest of my readers. I'm rather sure you're going to get just more than a couple of visits to your THRAS site and some of the things that you've talked about. So I think we're approaching that time where it might be time to bring it to a close, and kind of like your closing statement.
I'd love to do this for you, absolutely, for us. For a lot of people today, will bring about, sorry about my printing on here, but I've got so many things on my desk, is going to bring about some anxiety to some people in thinking. How is a child going to read anxiety? Is it anacasit eti? Because we teach children that the letter X is the X. And this is the important thing about knowledge and understanding, teacher capacity, building teacher capacity. When a teacher knows that the letter X can represent the sound Z, and we look at all those phonic charts up around our classrooms, where they've got words like xylophone. Xylophone's right there, xylophone. And in xylophone, the letter X makes the sound Z, like in anxiety. So when I know that, I'm able to help a child spell that word. And that's what we've got to aim for as teachers, building our subject knowledge and building our capacity with understanding phonics and orthography.
I think you've come close to giving me that final statement, but I want to, you get, one of the things about these interviews is the interviewee gets the last word in. So I'm about to say nothing more, and you're about to finish things up for us. And I have to say, I am just in awe. I'm in awe of your pupil, last week. Narelle is very much your pupil. I'm in awe of your working knowledge. I'm in awe of your enthusiasm and your ability to teach teachers, and you're bringing those that kind of, there are some folks out there that seem to want to treat teachers as dunderheads that don't know possibly what they're doing, and that's certainly not your approach. So I really, I'll shut up, and the last couple of minutes here are yours, and then we'll say goodbye.
Thanks, Sam. It's been great working with you. And I think what I'd like to finish on and going is that teaching is complex. Teaching reading is complex. It's not a simple process. And it takes, for us as teachers, it's a big journey. And from when we first start, when we first leave our teachers' college, when we get out there in front of 20 odd children, and we have to take them on this journey, there's not just one element that we have to work on. There are lots of elements that we have to be able to provide for our children. Phonics is essential and non-negotiable. As you can see with everything I've done here, it's essential and it's non-negotiable, but it's not only. And it should be done in context, and we have lots of other very important skills that support phonics. So when we're talking about oral language and vocab development and so forth, bringing in etymology, the meanings of words, bringing in morphemes and so forth, it is such a complex process that please, and I ask teachers, don't be swayed by, oh, I've got an easy, simple way to teach this, because there is no easy, simple way to teach it. Understanding phonics is really important, and it gives you really good knowledge to be able to work with your learners. As you can see with all these teachers, it doesn't stop. Phonics does not stop in prep or year 1 or year 2 or year 3. As I said with these year 9 boys, it still goes through. And for us as adults, if I want to do the word anxiety, I need to know that the letter X isn't just a X, but can make the sound Z, like in xylophone. So thank you very much, Sam, for having me and on board. And it's been great fun working with you. It's lovely to see you face to face. And thank you, everyone, for listening.
Well, thank you. And I'll do a last mention here to my readers that we will certainly have links to your site and other kinds of things. And this was just another amazing interview. So, gosh, what time is it there, by the way?
It's 10:21 a.m. on Thursday morning here.
And
So
over here, it's 8:21 at night. So that's the way the international thing works here. Okay.
Great that we've got Zoom and so forth to be able to do it.
Okay. And I always end things with a Zoom wave. So let's do a Zoom wave and say bye to everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye, everybody. Bye.